Welcome to The Built World Around You, the podcast where we explore the people, ideas, and innovations shaping residential and commercial construction, as well as all the industries connected to it. Each week, we sit down with thought leaders, rising stars, and real problem solvers tackling today's toughest challenges. From job site breakthroughs to boardroom strategies, we're here to share the lessons, the struggles, and the success stories that are a part of tomorrow's world being built right now. So grab your hard hat, sharpen your pencil, and let's get to work. Welcome to The Built World Around You. I am your host, Bobby Thompson. And as you can see, we're doing an on-site recording, which is different than we normally do. Get very excited. I have with me the incomparable Danielle Conrow, and I will tell you that Danielle and I have partnered in a number of ways over the years through our work at the Maryland Building Industry Association, through our work in workforce development, but also because Rodgers Consulting is phenomenal in the space that they're in. You've been a subject matter expert for a long time, and I'm just so stoked to be able to record an episode with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So, for the folks that don't know you, please tell us, who you are and what do you do?
Good afternoon. Good morning. I'm Danielle Conrow. I'm a team leader and principal at Rodgers Consulting. I'm a licensed civil engineer. I've been in the land development space for almost 25 years, believe it or not. And very passionate about women in construction and very passionate about workforce development in the construction industry.
I appreciate that. And so talk us through, why are you passionate about workforce development? And obviously the elephant in the room is that we work in an industry that doesn't look like the world we live in, but why is that important to you?
I think that we spend a lot of time in the consulting space that I'm in. We spend a lot of time trying to solve for how to hire the best folks and where to find the right people, whether it's a civil engineer, whether it's a CAD designer, a landscape architect, a planner. And I feel like over and over again, when I talk to some of my colleagues, even outside of Rodgers, we all sort of have the same challenges in hiring the right people. And everyone sort of talks about how, the hiring pool is thin. It feels very thin. And it feels like the most obvious answer to that is to really kind of boost the workforce development and connect folks to find people to pull into, the industry.
I appreciate that. So what are some of the efforts that you're seeing in the market today that move this forward, this narrative about meeting? Obviously, we're in a workforce shortage.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing in the market right now that are efforts that need to be highlighted?
Oh, absolutely. So, first, our efforts should be highlighted, and MBIA, for starting up a workforce development committee, which is really kind of bringing out in the open what some of the needs are on the industry side, but also talking about some of the really great programs that are out there in the public schools, the community college space, and the university space. There are a lot of really great efforts, especially I feel like in the last decade or so, propping up some of our CTA, our career technology academies, what we know as VOTEC.
Right.
There are a lot of folks that they're really passionate about bringing people up in that space, and so what's really important is that we connect those people with the employers that are looking for them and provide those opportunities.
Yeah, and just kind of talking about those efforts, right? There seems to be an unknown, right, struggle that is out there. It's finding folks that are, one, willing to put in the sweat equity to make these pipelines and make these connections, but also it seems like there's a lack of buy-in from some institutions that realize that there are folks in the market that are truly trying to do no harm.
Yeah.
And are purely trying to create pathways for their students, for their association members, because some of the pipelines are other associations, to find access to roles that are here in the construction industry. Do you see the same thing from your perspective?
I need you to clarify. You're talking about some of the hesitancy with
Mm-hmm.
some of the universities to kind of even welcome some of the workforce.
That's exactly
And
right.
yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do see that some. I think that it's a little easier to talk to, and perhaps I'm a little biased with my background, but it's a little easier to talk with some of the public school space and some of the community college space. They are so used to reaching out to local industry leaders. They're so used to staying hyper local. And they're used to kind of having those pipeline partnerships there. So I find it's almost a little easier to talk to some of those folks than it is at the university space. For the university space, they're used to standard donor relationships.
That's right.
They're used to some sort of exchange. They're used to something that is very programmatic and planned out. They are not accustomed to simply, we want to be able to connect with you because we want to be able to hire the folks that you are introducing into the industry. And we'd like to talk with you about programmatically what you're addressing in the classroom so that they can be prepared and successful when they enter the industry.
Right. Wow. I wonder from a programmatic standpoint in that sponsor relationship, right? There is this layered perception that commercial dollars are driving a lot of the reason why the pathways from some of these institutions lean commercial construction versus residential construction. Are you seeing this also in some of the, I would say, earlier development pipelines, like the CTAs? Or is it more broadband that this is an experience you're seeing at the institutional level, say the four-year university and university level?
I think it's more the university level for sure, because at the earlier levels, in the public school, for example, they're so broad, they're trying to produce carpenters, they're trying to produce entry-level engineers, welders. It's not as specific. And they're not looking at some of those, potentially who's going to be looking for their name on a building and wondering where the catch is and when's the relationship going to stop. And that tends to be, I think, more at the university level. Yeah.
That's fair. And so tell me a little bit more. You highlighted some of the relationships in the Southern County, right? And I know that you have been, not only are you an alumnus to CTA, but you are also a staunch supporter of CTA. So absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Calvert County, Maryland, and in Calvert County Public Schools, I graduated in 2001, and at that time it was called VOTEC Academy. It is now the Career Technology Academy. And since I've left that space, I have continually, in one capacity or another, reached back and either kind of spoken with some of the students. They really appreciate when you just sort of blunt answer their questions. They want to know what the industry is like. They want to know what you make. They want to know where you travel. They want to know what your career path was. Right. And they just want someone that's not going to just talk at them. They want somebody that they can have a conversation with, like a real person, so that they can envision themselves in that space at some point, right? And they have something they're aiming towards. So, gosh, where else to go from CTA?
Well, that's the thing, right? So I think that we've had some exposure to Skills USA, but really the nuts and bolts of it, the ones that are right out of the gate, has been CTA. There's a pre-apprenticeship program with ABC that we're getting exposed to, but it's still early stages yet.
Yeah.
So I would say that really it's a call to action for any of those institutions out there that are looking to find construction industry placement for their students. They should reach out.
Absolutely. Well, I think what I can talk about a little bit is my kind of my piece in that and my experience and where I think would be helpful, and why some other institutions would want to participate and connect with organizations like BIA and like the workforce development initiatives and that committee that we're building. The teachers, CTA, even the local community college of Southern Maryland, which I also love dearly, they like to hear from alumnus, as you said, that have been through the program and then managed to turn something that they sometimes view as a small leg up to the industry and be able to kind of parlay that into a successful career. I often go and talk with some of the teachers and the students there to tell my story, to kind of show that, right? So, right. I started in my junior year of high school. I went to, I'm going to say VOTEC because it'll differentiate between then and now.
Right.
It's still Votech to me. So I started at Votech in their AutoCAD technician training program when I was a junior in high school. My dad encouraged me to do it. He kind of felt like that was really a technical skill that was going to be really valuable. And I was very geometry heavy, and I super loved geometry. So anyway, I took that in my junior year, and then my senior year, just for personal reasons, I needed a better job than the K Cafe where I was kind of cooking eggs and doing my thing. So I went to my CAD teacher and said, hey, is there anything that I can do right now as a senior in high school that would kind of get me going and help use the skills that you've already taught me in this CAD class? He said, yeah, actually there is.
Okay.
And he set me up with 3 interviews. I went on all three. All 3 wanted to hire. And I was in a position where I could work, go to school half the day and then work a half a day, 4 hours a day, each day of the week as an engineering intern, just doing CAD work. And some of the things that we're doing for the CTAs now, like we have some of those internship opportunities available. We work with companies that want to do that right now and get people started early, especially if they have those technical skills in place. Now in my case, I started working when I was 16. I graduated a touch early. It just happened that I was with a civil engineering firm. At one point,
Right.
I think I thought I was going to help build rockets for monkeys at NASA or something. I don't know, just something engineering. But civil engineering kind of found me. I love it. I love the idea that, we are building the infrastructure that we all rely on around us. It feels like sort of that is the gift that some of the civil engineers have that help create the community around us. Everybody has something, right? The civils, we have the means that get you from your house to your job to the hospital if you need to go there, right? So anyway, and then, skipping a couple of steps ahead that might be a little lengthy, I went to the College of Southern Maryland. I worked full time and I took classes when I could. CSM was they're just so welcoming to students. They have no interest payment plans and all kinds of ways to kind of make that work. And
right on. Shout out to CSM.
Oh my gosh. And so, and if it wasn't for that associate's degree, that took me, like 7 years just to be able to get that working full time. I don't know that I would have really continued on that track and kind of stayed ever forward in that engineering space. So, past that, I intended to transfer to Maryland. That is what is sort of typical of a community college in my area, is that you would be an engineering transfer. I looked into it. I did some math, and I realized that I probably would be able to sit for my PE licensing exam years before I would ever finish at the rate I was going,
Right.
and meanwhile trying to start a family and live my actual life outside of work, right? So I said, you know what, I'm just going to kind of lock in and see what happens here and continue with my 14 years of experience that the board required at the time. Was able to get it all, verified through my RPE forms, and I sat for the exam. I had a 1-year-old at home and was 8 months pregnant with my second. Sat for it, passed it the first time, cried a lot, super happy.
Tears of joy.
Absolutely.
Tears of joy.
Relief. But yeah, so that story, and then just talking about being able to kind of go through those steps, starting with, a decision about what my curriculum looked like my junior year of high school, and then finding a path forward that maybe wasn't the typical, graduate from high school, go straight to a 4-year college, right? And using the resources, one of them being CSM, using the resources available to be able to make something out of very little and still be successful despite that. That is what I want the generation that's like in the thick of it right now to hear. I want them to hear that there's always another path, right? And I think that, that CAD teacher, right, that helped me out, that set me up with those 3 interviews, we have the ability to make such great connections for kids now. Not everybody is going to think to, ask the teacher. Not every teacher is going to have that connection there, right? So it's our responsibility in the industry and as this generation, frankly, to reach back to the next generation and help provide those opportunities, especially since it kind of goes hand in hand with a concern that we have, which is hiring.
That's right.
Right? It's very simple.
And I think it's that shepherd mentality that you're saying, right? And so being able to, however you're going to open the door, if it's a toe, a leg, or body, and kick the door down, whatever the case may be, creating that pathway and that pipeline for the new, we'll say, generation to join the industry is so vital. And there are different steps to that. And I like and I appreciate that you shared it, that everyone's journey isn't going to be this very cookie cutter pathway, right? And so your winding journey is similar to many that are, those listening and viewing it, I'm sure, get to see it the same exact way, that it's not always going to be sterile and this clean thing on a very specific timeline. Yeah. Life is going to throw the curveballs and you're going to have to adapt, and it's okay to adapt.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, in talking with my own freshman in high school now and some of his friends and other teacher friends of mine as well, the schools do a fantastic job of showing students what some of their options are. And there are a lot of great options. There's a lot of articulation agreements that some of the community colleges have. Some states, have blanket articulation agreements to make it even better. So there's a lot of great stuff out there, but it kind of comes with the side effect sometimes to the kids where they feel like they have to decide something in middle school and then stick with it
early.
And so it's an unintentional byproduct, right? You're just trying to kind of open their mind and show them there's all of these great things that they can try before they've even graduated high school, to kind of find their niche or at least get closer to it, or find out maybe what they hate. That's valuable too, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that because you made a choice in your senior year of high school, even if it's that late, that you're stuck with
that. You have to stick with it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and no, that's spot on, and I appreciate you sharing that. So I guess small pivot then, if we're talking about careers in the windy roads that we all are on, I ask everyone typically, what is a person, or who is a person or moment in your career that stands out to you that made the largest impact, and who or what that was?
Positive or negative, huh?
Positive or negative. Yeah, because sometimes a negative leads to a positive, right?
Yeah.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't pick one. Is that awful?
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's your story to tell.
Yeah, sure. Well, honestly, that CAD teacher, and my dad, if he hadn't kind of nudged me to take the class, that's sort of the catalyst in the very beginning, right? So, but that CAD teacher, had he not provided me those opportunities, I don't know that I would have thought it was possible to already get to work, right? And so, I was already kind of in a mindset of, I need to work to pay for my pager, my phone, my car pay, whatever it was that I was doing at the time, right? And, had he not kind of thought differently, he could have easily shrugged me off.
Right.
And said, that's not what I do. That's not appropriate. I don't know someone, open the phone book, whatever,
But he leaned in.
Right? And he set me up with those interviews, and that was fantastic. And each of those 3 companies was willing to hire a 16-year-old in high school part-time because they needed the skill set, which puts an emphasis on that technical skill.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at now, because you and I have done mock interviews with kids that are in college, right? And you do a lot of community outreach on your own in the southern counties. When you look at the population coming up, this next wave, right? We have a bunch of, and this is the long-winded question is, we have a bunch of folks that are retiring out, and a need is there.
Yep.
But we also have a hungry and driven younger cohort coming up through the ranks. What are you seeing in that younger cohort that differentiates them from the present workforce today?
I'm so glad that you used the word hungry, because they so are. A few things drive me crazier than someone saying this generation doesn't want to work. Oh my gosh, that drives me up a wall. They want to work. They're planning for it. They're getting ready. They're finding their own unique solutions to doing things as simple as driving to a CTA event to be able to do something after school to learn a little bit more, right? Just think about one kid as an example. They're very driven, and they think differently. They have such great ideas. They grew up so different than a lot of the rest of us in our generation, right? Like, I'm in the generation where we started off with, a very old Mac computer or DOS only, right?
That's right.
And now we're using iPhones, and I can do everything on just that, right? This generation, they only know that AI is like inherent to them already.
That's right.
Right? They think that way differently. Something this, maybe 7-8 years ago now, but something that comes to mind as an example is when I was with Calvert County Public Works before I came to Rodgers Consulting, I had hired, I think he was his first year at CSM. I had hired an intern to come work with us at Public Works. It was so funny. We were sitting in this meeting, and there's a bunch of us trying to figure out, okay, 60 days from this date means this date or 30. Yeah, I did a couple ordinances in there, so maybe it was something like we're trying to calendar something out, whatever it was. And Josh comes in and he Googles 60 days from X. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's that simple. Look how many paychecks we're wasting just sitting here counting. Like, this is crazy. So, but they think differently,
That's right.
And they have different ideas, different ways of solving issues. And I think it's really exciting to think about what they'll do with things like AI coming into the workforce. But I also think that we need to be ready for that. And we need to be open for that. And we need to not expect that they're going to kind of go through the same procedural, learning curve that we have, because the technology is different. And that's not great for industry to kind of set them back artificially to do that. We should welcome it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that there is a number of folks out there that still have that fear of AI, right? And this goes not even just our industry, just broadband blanket statement. There's a lot of folks that, even though it's so prevalent right now, that there's still a lot of folks that are afraid to embrace it, afraid to even entertain it as a solution. And so this younger generation that is coming up, this younger cohort that are providing the much needed labor force that we are short, need to have a space that they can ideate on varying solutions using what's comfortable to them or what's available on the market. And I do think that when they join the industry, eventually it's going to be even much further. If you think of how fast AI is being adopted and the different sectors of the industry that it's now making a big impact on right now, it's just going to get that much further and faster, exponentially so, right? There's a AI education zone that is coming to the International Builder Show in Orlando, February 17th to the 19th. So we're going to see a lot of that on display, which absolutely, I can't wait to watch how many builders, varying sizes, embrace that content.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they're going to come into the workforce with, the skill set that we're talking about today is going to be different in even a year from now, as you said, right? It's exponential growth in that space. But just counterpoints that's all the more reason why we need to be mentoring and talking. So we need to be, embracing that efficiency and those ideas and how we can think about how we get our day-to-day done with those methods. But we also need to be providing some mentorship and some guidance so that we can make sure that we keep our ethics about us, right? And so that we can make sure that, the folks that are using these things can kind of tell, hold on a second, that seems like that train of thought's going way offline of what the client intended or what's actually planned. There's still a lot of real world experience that needs to be applied.
Yeah, you got to put the guardrails on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do they say? A wide lanes, high bumpers, right? So you give everyone the opportunity to fail and fail fast and learn from those smaller mistakes without something that's detrimental, but it allows them to work those muscles so that way they understand the why. Because how else do you impart all of that, like you said, tribal knowledge or experience to that up and coming if you don't explain it?
That's right.
And give them the opportunity to understand it. Some folks learn differently. So having them give the effort and then understand the results of that effort and the reason why these are the other options that we should and could choose. And then that be the growth exercise. What are your thoughts on that?
And also being able to communicate it, right? That's a skill set that probably we don't talk about enough, right? Especially for, a highly technical person, so I'm an engineer and, we're not known for our excellent communication skills typically, right? So, and typically the most successful among us are those that are able to convey whatever it is that we work so hard on to someone that doesn't necessarily speak that same language. And that's probably true for a good chunk of our industry. And it's going to be true for AI as well, where someone's going to spend a lot of time, this let's say younger person, right? Let's just assume a younger person that's coming fresh out of school that has this knowledge of these AI tools, or even just thinks to use the same tools differently than we do.
Right.
Right. It could even just be that, all perspective. But if they're sitting in that kind of computer space for a while, or that technical space for a while, if they don't have some mentorship and guidance to help them communicate that to their peers, it's not going to, the idea is only good if it is shared, right?
That's 100% right. I'm so excited that you shared that. So let me ask you this. If you had to give one blueprint, and we're talking about a lot today, but one takeaway, one nugget to share with that generation that's coming up through the ranks, what would it be?
Oh, don't even give up halfway through. Never. I mean, there is always, always, always another way. I mean, in the middle of it, the middle is the hardest part, right? I have seen people successfully navigate, their education path, whatever it may be, and come out ready, come out swinging, ready, joining the industry, ready to go, and then, face different challenges, right? Maybe they don't feel welcome, maybe they don't feel heard, maybe they don't have proper mentorship, maybe they're not sure precisely what part of the industry they're a good fit for coming fresh out of school. Right. And they tend to kind of gravitate to wherever feels the most comfortable, and then they stay there, and then they may or may not be sort of happy where they landed. But yeah, if you consider 25 years, sort of a fairly complete cycle, as it were, right? And I look back, it's the middle that was the hardest part.
The most difficult.
Yeah, that's when you need somebody that can kind of like tell you to keep going, that everything you've done so far is good effort, right? No regrets. Keep learning, keep putting that effort in, always be open to some new ideas, and keep pushing forward.
No, I love that. So the nugget, the takeaway for that generation is when the going gets tough, right?
Yep.
Stay resilient.
Absolutely.
And never give up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to find out on the other side of that middle, that difficult grind is glorious.
There is something for you. And if there isn't, make it.
I love that. So I know we talked about a lot today, right? You're going off into this workforce development piece. What's one thing that you would like to see from that in the short term, right? We're thinking in terms of years. So next 2 years, where would you like to see the workforce development efforts in the Maryland market?
Oh, I would love to see that any CTA program, any community college, any university, I would love that if they all had a hub, something that they could rely on and send students to, a central location where we could kind of have that pipeline set up. So, if I'm picking one thing, there's a lot of other partnerships that maybe, we could talk about that look a little bit different. But if one answer that would really help both industry and students entering industry out is to have one central location, whether it's a website or some other sort of exchange where someone can kind of essentially go in and virtually raise their hand and say like, hey, I'm going to be graduating in 3 months. This is what I'm focusing on. I'm looking for a job in this place or remotely, or I'm willing to move, or whatever the case may be, and sync them up with the people that are going, man, I really need an entry-level engineer. I'm looking at my backlog and I need somebody in like 6 months, right? So, and there's, you can kind of spin that into, other folks that are just getting started in the industry and maybe have a couple of years under their belt as well. People that haven't had a chance to do a lot of networking and are still trying to get some of their years under their belt so they have a resume, right? But reaching back a little bit farther to be able to catch the folks that are really kind of trying to break into industry coming out.
No, I love that. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, right, what's the best way for them to contact you or to connect with you to collaborate about workforce development or your work at Rodgers Consulting?
Probably the easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the easiest way across the board. Okay.
So Danielle Conrow, PE.
Yes, sir.
In LinkedIn. And so we're going to be airing this episode. I will absolutely at you. So that way those folks that want to engage with you can engage with you. And if you're interested, for those of you that are out there in the workforce development efforts that are being championed by Danielle, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can also reach out to myself, Bobby, at thompsongroupventures.com. We are looking for folks to participate in the Workforce Development Committee for the Maryland Building Industry Association. And we welcome all those that are coming with the spirit of opening doors and pipelines.
That's right. Well said.
All right. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for taking the time. I could talk to you for hours.
Likewise.
We look forward to having you again here soon.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bobby.
You have a good one. Thank you for listening to The Built World Around You. If today's conversation gave you new insights or sparked fresh ideas, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps more builders, leaders, and innovators join the conversation. Until next time, keep building smarter, leading stronger, and shaping the world around you.